Chief and Grand Rising to the sovereign, original indigenous, natural divine heir. Today is November the 3rd, 1442 on the ancient moon calendar, and 1441 on the ancient sun calendar, and 2021 on the Greco-Roman calendar, or the civil calendar. All rise and stand. This is a sovereign, original indigenous, natural divine, ancient Al-Moroccan, Moorish American, Article 3, court action. I am sovereign living justice, following Diminutio, in capitis nationall, in red ink, in propria persona fiduciarie, in propria solo, and in propria heredes. My free chosen sovereign appellation is like fiduciarie, in capitis nationall, in red ink, in propria persona fiduciarie, in propria solo, and in propria heredes. We are the original indigenous, sovereign, ancient Al-Moroccan, Moorish American descendants of the great pharaohs of Kemet and of the ancient Moabites and Canaanites. Our full faith, trust, allegiance, credit, and energy are hereby vested in ourselves, for we are the de jure, original indigenous, natural divine, Moorish National Republic federal government, and the sovereign ancient empire state of Morocco. We hereby exercise all sovereign rights at this time and at all points in time, not pro tunc. So the first thing that I want to do, because our prophet, he said that we're just plain rich. So I want to read in the Holy Quran where that is spelled out, so that we can know that, again, what we're doing is exactly what we should be doing. We're going to read part of chapter 27. It is entitled The Holy Unity of the Rich and the Poor, and it is absolutely worth reading. It says, the man to whom Allah has given riches and blessed with a mind to employ them aright is peculiarly favored and highly distinguished. He looketh upon his wealth with pleasure, because it affordeth him the means to do good. He protecteth the poor that are injured. He suffereth not the mighty to oppress the weak. He seeks out objects of compassion. He injureth into their wants. He relieveth them with judgment and without ostentation. Let me read that again. He relieveth them with judgment and without ostentation. He assisteth and rewards merit. He encourageth ingenuity and liberally promoteth every useful design. He carrieth his own great works. His country is enriched and the labor is employed. He formeth new schemes and the art receives improvement. He considers the superfluities of his table as belonging to the poor of his neighborhood, and he defraudeth them not. The benevolence of his mind is not checked by his fortune. He rejoiceth, therefore, in riches, and his joy is blameless. And I want to stop there, because this is applicable to us all right now, specifically because of what we're moving into. We are moving into the wealth and the resources on the vast estate, and we have to be prepared for that, because it's not something that should be taken lightly, because resources as vast as the ones that we are accessing will destroy someone who's not ready for them. We've seen stories on television about people who did things like won the lottery and, things like that, and they ended up dead 2 years later, because of the lifestyle and the things that happened, you know, because they were not used to having anything. Some of them met with calamity from others who came and took advantage of them and then got rid of them. Others just ran through and wasted, and that is not something that we're going to do, because we know better. It's not going to change us. It's not going to destroy us. It's actually going to make us better than we are in terms of our mind, our consciousness, and all of that, because we already are who we're going to be. If we're awesome and, you know, willing to help others with the little that we had, then how much more when we have, as we're accessing our vast estate and our inheritance. Okay, so I'm excited for us that we're moving further into the accessing of the vast estate. We know now that it's not even a matter of if, it's a matter of, okay, how do we, let's make sure that we go into this with the right mindset, and we go into it with the right intention and then go into it with a plan. And that's what all of this is all about. It's a plan. We're putting together our strategy and our plan for continuing to govern the vast estate, and how we're going to use it to assist others. So with that being said, there's a couple of documents that we want to bring forth today that is just amazing. First, I want to bring forth a little something about why we've been doing what we're doing with regard to the capital letters and capitalism. We don't hate capitalism, but it's a tool that belongs to the Empire State of Morocco. It's not something that belongs in the hands of bandits and, you know, incompetent subjects, or, you know, corporations, rather. It is something that needs to be in the hands of the heirs, because we will use it properly and competently. And that's what we're doing now, is first making it known what capitalism looks like, and also what our way of using capitalism to our advantage. Okay, and the fiduciary document explains that a little bit. It kind of introduces the use of capitalism for us and how we are to use our resources, because again, the hybrids didn't think of anything new. They didn't do anything unheard of. Everything that they did, they just looked at what the Moors did and they said, okay, let's capitalize and hypothecate that and issue it ourselves and use it the way we want to use it, in the negative, in terms of the debtors. Because they started out with a reduction of status, and they knew that. They started out with debt, and they knew that. So I put a link in the chat, and this link will be under the this video as well. I want us to take a look at how, when they were writing the Constitution for them, okay, they knew that there were some things that they could not leave in all lowercase letters. They had to change it so as not to claim a sovereign status that they don't have, and also to change the meaning of the things that they were saying. So we have accessed the notes and the writings associated with when they were crafting the Constitution and the changes that they made, where they said, okay, this is the first draft of the Constitution, and you all, they actually appointed a committee, of style and arrangement. And the committee of style and arrangement was the committee in charge of capitalizing all the right words so that it would mean what they wanted it to mean. And that's why the citizens had no rights, really, because the committee of style and arrangement that they put together to help them to capitalize the Constitution, that committee said, okay, which words do we need to capitalize so that, number one, we don't claim sovereignty when we know we're not. That's the Moors. They have the highest status. So we have to use some capital letters in capitis diminutio minima at minimal. They had to at least capitalize the first letter. And then down the road in 1871 is when they capitalized the whole thing and put things in corporate status, okay, all the way in corporate status. And we have access to those notes. This link is to a page called the quillproject.net, the Quill Project. And if you know, a quill is a form of writing instrument that they used back then to write out some of the things that they were doing. And so when you click on the link, and it's on the screen here, I want to point out just a couple of things. Over here on this side is mention of, right here, it's a report from the Committee of Style and Arrangement, right here. This report of the Committee of Style and Arrangement, unfortunately, we could see the differences that they were doing. The Committee of Style and Arrangement said, okay, we're hypothecating to be and pretending to be the United States of America. And so, yes, they did. You know, they penciled with the Constitution. Yes, they did. And so the Committee of Style and Arrangement said, okay, how are we going to write this so that we make sure that we don't say that we're sovereign, because we're not sovereign like the Moors, but we need to make sure that we use the capital letters properly, because they know that even one capital letter changes the meaning of the word, even one. So they said, okay, the style of this quote-unquote government shall be the United States of America. And then when they put on the screen here, when they said, we the people of the United States, they knew that they were incorporating everyone, even here. So the Committee of Style and Arrangement said, though that first word must be capitalized completely so that we can correct everything that follows, so that everyone knows who knows how to read that this Constitution is for the corporations and those of them who were corporations. That everyone who goes by this Constitution and says that they are a citizen of this United States and not that United States, because again, we were the original United States in red and all lowercase letters. So they said we have to do it differently because this is, you know, so we'll look at what they did and we'll copy it. Now, let me show you the first draft, because this is one of the one that's on the screen is a little more, this was one of the first ones, and if you'll see here, it says, we the people of the state of New Hampshire, Massachusetts. So they knew that these states were corporations, right here. And they put dashes in between some of them, Rhode Island and Providence Plantations, New-York, New-Jersey, North-Carolina, South-Carolina. So they knew that these were corporations that were debtors. And the Style and Arrangement Committee said, you have to put it that way, and you have to style it that way if it's going to work, if we can use it without getting in trouble with the Moors. Okay, so this is the beginnings of those corporations, stating that they have some quote-unquote government. But even the way they wrote it was corporate. And that's why it's so important for us in doing what we're doing right now. Because some people say, they can't tell us how to govern. We can write it however we want to write it. That is true to a degree. However, we must be competent to govern. That's what all of this is about, is showing ourselves that we're competent to govern. And then knowing the difference between the courts and us. Because when things are done this way, like you see it here on the screen, it's actually the antithesis of the Constitution, because it then makes them lienable and not unalienable and inalienable. You cannot lien anything that is in all lowercase letters. You can't. It's unalienable, even according to the rules of writing and the rules of reading and the rules of capitalization. That's why it's called capitalism. And that's how they knew that, okay, we have to make ourselves lienable if we're going to do anything, and then we'll just dumb the Moors down over time. Since they're going to our Board of Education animal schools, we'll just dumb them down and tell them everybody writes with a capital letter at the beginning. And everyone, that's how you write it, and it's wrong if you write it in all lowercase letters. And they said it's wrong if you write it in all capital letters. Why? Because they did not want us to say that we're corpses already, because that is how they were going to say that they have some say over us. It's through the courts, the corporations, city of, state of, county of. Those are all corporations right here on the screen. And that is how they were going to pretend to govern the Moors. So they said, only teach them to write with the first letter capitalized and the rest of the letters lowercase, because that will make them wards of the state. Those are wardship names. And then all caps is corpses. And then they said, whenever we go to war with them, for example, if they're doing banking and things like that, that's war. If they're trying to get anything or own anything, that's war. So we have to put them in capital letters. So any banks and fake courts and anything that has to do with resources in that system, we have to capitalize them all the way. We have to put them in all capital letters. And that way we can call them into our fake courts at any time and throw them in jail. We can garnish wages. We can take things. We can take money out of Social Security checks and all of that because of the capitalized system, the system of capitalism that they are using or were using. So let me just show you one of the different ways that the report on, so this is the detail of the amended convention. This is how they wrote this one. But I want us to be able to compare it to the report that the style committee gave. Okay. So this is the one that was done by the Committee of Style and Arrangement. Now, if you look at this one and you see the content, it says, "We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union." More perfect union to establish justice, to ensure domestic tranquility. Look at the way they wrote it here, the Committee on Style and Arrangement, and then they went back and said, okay, let's redraft yet again. It says up here at the top, this was the last major redraft of the Constitution. It was the last major redraft, but they did make some minor changes that are really still major. Because if you look at the difference between this one, and let me go back to the one we just looked at. And this one, it says, "We, the people of the states of New Hampshire, Massachusetts, etc." So they were making changes along the way, and they said, instead of us just speaking to these 13 corporations, or naming these few corporations right here, which I think it was 9 at the time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, yeah, it was 13. Instead of us just speaking to this 13, let's just make it general so that we can turn everybody into corpses when we get ready. So they changed it from naming these 13 to going back and saying, okay, just one moment, let me make sure you can see this. Yeah, they just went from naming these 13, they said, okay, we're going to just be the people. And that way, because see, they had plans on expanding the whole time outside of the 10 by 10 miles. Now, meanwhile, they knew that they were only supposed to be in a 10-mile radius. They knew that because it's mentioned in here. And then they put capital letters at the beginning of all of these, whereas if you look back through, and I put the link in the chat so that you can go and just look at the different drafts of the Constitution that they put together. In here, there's also some letters that were written, and in some of those letters, they talk about Negro, black, colored, and Indians, etc. And what do we know about the Indians? We know here, right here, it talks about excluding Indians not taxed and 3/5 of all other persons. Right here, with regard to representation. They knew that, first of all, Indians are really actually from India. That's where they are from, and they are Indian. That is not us. That's them. That's the ones from India. And we're not saying that we're separate from anyone on earth because everyone comes from us. What we are saying is that the primogenitors are us, and the Indians are Indians. Okay, that's what we're saying, and that's not a division or a divisive statement. That is a statement of fact. Not to divide us, it's to point out the fact. So Looking through here, again, they know what dashes in a word mean. It's a minus sign. Because all words are math. All words are math. It's called gematria. And everyone uses it. They just didn't teach it to us because that's our ancient science that we were going to come back into when we're at the point that we're at right now. Okay? So when you have some time, this is a study piece right here. Okay? How is this helping us? This is helping us to know that all along they have always known about capitalism and capitalizing. Why? Because those who study history, just like when our prophet said, go to those who know law and you will receive a favorable reply, those who know history, go to them and you will receive a favorable reply about what's being done. Reports of the Committee of Style and Arrangement, they knew about capitalism and how to use it, and then they changed it. I want to point out, again, it says, we the people of the United States in order to form a more perfect union. Here, perfect union has all lowercase letters, but then I'm going to click here on the left on the Constitution of the United States and look at the words now. We, the people of the United States, in order, they capitalized order, and they've also capitalized union. They've capitalized justice, and they've capitalized tranquility, because that is not what they meant. They were saying we need to capitalize these and let it mean what we say it means. What does that mean? That means that they were going to, they had plans all along to usurp the authority of the Moors and then say, okay, we will have tranquility and all of that as long as you all stay in U.S. citizen status. As long as you all stay in capitis diminutio minimum, then we can capitalize you at any time, and everything will be tranquil and peaceful and just. And it's a good union if we can be the courts and corporations that tell you what to do, and that our fake courts tell you Moors what to do. That is what that means. Because, see, if you leave tranquility and justice and union, if you leave them in all lowercase letters, that's going to mean it means what we say it means. And they could not do that. They didn't want to do that because they want to determine what those words mean. So, again, you know, we're not mad at them and we're not mad at capitalism. We just have to know to take it and use it the way we need to use it in order to, number one, stay in our sovereign ancient jurisdiction. Number two, take control of the resources on our land. Do that. All they were doing here is saying that if we can get the Moors used to using capital letters and black ink that we issue to them, then they have to do what we tell them, because they won't know to change the style of the writing. And then we can pretend like everything belongs to us and, you know, all of that. Okay. And so for those who think that it does not matter how we write things, I would say that to do a little more study because it does matter. They had a whole committee put together when they were doing this usurpation thing. And that committee's job was to make sure that the words that they use mean what they say, and it applies to them and not to us, the Moors. Even when they talk about promote the general welfare, they were not talking about anything that had to do with helping out the Moors. And secure the blessings of liberty. Nope. And then United States of America. They put it in, they started it with the capital letters. And they went throughout this whole document, just capitalizing and capitalizing and capitalizing things, which tells me that the version that they received first and were looking at was not capitalized. The one that they copied and then started editing according to their liking was not capitalized. And I will say this, they did the exact same thing with the biblioteliotext, the Bible. They did the exact same thing. And even today, if you go out there on YouTube and you look at some of the stuff that's out there in terms of those, and I'm not talking about the real Christians, I'm talking about the commercial ones. When they talk about, for example, they say if you want to serve God, serve God. If you want to serve Baal, serve him. And when they say him, when they talk about their God, they put a capital H. And when they talk about Baal, they put a lowercase h on the word him. If you want to serve God, serve him. If you want to serve Baal, serve him. Because they know that capital letters make that gives it the meaning they want it to have. So what have we done as remedy to that? What we have done is first make our foundational documents in capitis diminutio nullo, which means no lowering of status at all. That's what in capitis diminutio means. It means using capital letters to lower. And we say nullo, which means no loss of status, no lowering of status. And then we keep it in all lowercase letters. So it's the opposite of what we would think and what we've been told. Because they said if you use all capital letters, it means you're yelling. That's what they say on social media. If you use all capital letters, you're yelling. Well, yelling is kind of like warring. That's friction. And they're kind of giving you a hint that that's non-vigueur behavior. And it means something hostile. It means something hostile. So we had to take those tools out of their hands. And what did we do? First, we leaned their version, that straw, lean it, that's issued by them. Oh yes, lean that. Lean it. It's in black dead ink. And then we did court actions on that straw and sent that thing packing to Guantanamo Bay. Then we said we're going to issue our own, whatever it is we want to issue, and put something in its place that is lawful. Just like our status, we removed the corporate covering off of ourselves and we put our lawful status there. Nature abhors a vacuum. So you can remove things out of the way all day long, but you got to put something lawful in its place, something lawful and peaceful that is used to uplift fallen humanity and to restore peace on the land. That's what all that we're doing is all about, is the restoration of peace and the restoration of the vast estate. And when it's issued by us, it is automatically, number one, living. Number two, it is subject to us. And number three, we can use it however we choose to use it. And what I have just described in terms of doing a court action and a lien on those fake fraudulent social security numbers and the fake fraudulent birth certificate names and all of that, and then putting our sovereign appellation there and creating our own sovereign living birth affidavit and sovereign security numbers with no dashes and putting it in red, that is the power of life and death being used the way it should be used. Because the power of life and death is in our tongue, in our judgments, in our commands. That is how we are to use our sovereign authority and our sovereign power, is to remove the war from the land, including off of the subjects. And that's what the lien process is about. And we hear it all the time, you know, where Moors will say, well, I don't want to lien because I don't want to really cause any friction. If you care about the subjects and the job and all of that, you will lien the corporate covering off of them, because that corporate covering is what's taxing them. They cannot be who they want to be. They want to do the right thing. The subjects want to do right, and they want to do right with the resources that they know belong to us. So if you love the subject so much, you lien that all cap thing and that nom de guerre and that wardship name so that they can come out of war status and be at peace. And if you're not willing to do that, please stop talking about how much you love them and how much that we shouldn't be at war with them, because we're not at war. We're freeing the whole earth, starting with ourselves. Because some have accused us of being abrasive because we want to put liens on everything. The liens are bringing the peace. That's why we do them. Because that court status, we don't want anything dead running around on our land covering up the living subjects. We do not. One of the empresses brought something to our attention yesterday, and Empress Tia brought this to our attention, and I want to bring forth what she brought to our attention because it's important. I'm going to put it on the screen, and also just one moment. Let me pull it up here and put it on the screen so that you can see it, and then I'll put a link to it under the video as well, so that you can see with regard to liens and all that we do. We're getting way more information coming to us with regard to the liens every day, actually. I want to thank also the Moors who send the information to us and say, hey, take a look at this. You need to see this. Because everything that we're getting affirms everything that we've been doing, specifically the lien piece. Because when we first started the lien piece, we got some pushback even from some of the Moors who were not really quite sure about why we were doing that. And they felt like, and Moors are peaceful by nature. So they thought that maybe we were doing things to start issues and problems, but in reality, the lien process is a peace move. It's to stop the war, because we don't cause war, we do stop it though. So, and that's why a nom de guerre is called a war name. In all capital letters, it's called a war name. Just one moment, let me see. Can you all hear me?
Islam, we can hear you.
Islam. Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, I want to put this document on the screen. It's called The Right to Keep and Bear Liens. And just point out a few things to you about liens and all of that. Here is the document, the title of the document. The Right to Keep and Bear Liens by Hartford Van Dyke. The book is released to the public domain, so anyone can use the book and do as they please with it. It's good information. Here on the first page, I just want to point out a couple of things. It says, those who do not use their brains are no better off than those who have no brains. They are beasts of burden and stakes on the table by choice and consent. That's a harsh indictment. And he's saying the same thing that our prophet said. Our prophet said that he wanted active Moors, not passive. And then this document also talks about how there's another book by this same, along the same lines, by the same author, I believe. It's called How to Create Currencies for Local Communities. And this is from 2002, where they were saying that communities needed to have their own currency. Again, the subjects wanted to get off of that fake fiat system. But they know that they can't do it if we don't do it first. It's only after we do it that they can do it. Okay? And that's because the land is ours, and whatever form of exchange is going on the land, in order for it to be binding on everyone on the land, it has to come from us. And that's the only reason why fiat was binding for a while there, because we agreed to use it, not knowing that we can start our own, we can have our own money, real money, not fiat, which is what we have now with the gold-backed Moorish sovereign dollarium. But here, the subjects were screaming again about some sovereign needs to step forth and do something about this money piece, because it says here, the natural flesh and blood laboring individuals of this country are potentially the real sovereigns of this nation, because they are the productive elements of the society. They have the natural right and power to protect their labor and the fruits of their labor by being the ones to regulate the money and to issue a stable currency for the nation pursuant to the 10th Amendment to the Constitution for the United States of America. And he specifically said Constitution for the United States of America. So they know, and they know who we are, the natural flesh and blood. Justice Theodore put a link to the document in the chat as well. It is on, I guess, Group B. I got this one sent to me by email, and so the link that I'll put will be to my to where I got it from. So again, we're getting information that says we're doing all the right things, all the right things. And again, liens and money go together. When we're liening, we have to have a way for the liens we have to have the money system in place to support the lien process. Because we can't tell people that they have to pay us in gold and silver and we don't have the money. We said gold and silver currency. We said constitutional money. And we've already proven by definition that we're actually the money and that anything that comes from us, if we say that's the money, then that's the money. And we've done that with Mors Sovereign Dollarium. So I want to point out just a couple of things on here. Okay. And this is why our courts are so important. Okay. Judge-created judgments and orders created by judge only equals equity or chancery court judges. And the writer of this is hostile towards judges and courts and all of that. Apparently, he's been liened quite a few times by their court. But it's still some good information with regard to liens. It says the judges are required by commercial law to disclose or reveal to defendants that the defendants have 3 months to challenge the judge's commercial lien, pass off on the public as the court's commercial lien. And the judge must prove that the judge or the court has purchased a distress bond to cover the liability of distressing, impounding, or arresting. And again, this is about domiciles and conveyances being taken and Moors being arrested. When we look at this from our perspective, again, it's written from a citizen perspective, but when we look at it from our perspective, you can see that there's a direct correlation between the court, the money, and the liens. And that it's only by our courts that we can issue a judgment or an order that is he's saying that those are cloaked in the deceptive titles, but they're really just a lien. And we've been saying that all bankers, all judges are bankers. This is proof right here coming from one of them now, and it's proof for them. We just have to look in the law to see what we have the ability to do to have the proof that we need. With regard to these, to the liens that we've been issuing, that's why we've said at the top of all of our affidavits, we put the Article 3 court action language. Okay, because every affidavit that we are issuing, no matter what the affidavit is about, is coming from our court and courts of equity, because I've heard some say that, you know, you can't rule from the bench. In corporate courts, you can't rule at all, but they've been doing it. But in our sovereign court for equity, okay, we as sovereign justices can do the exact same thing that the ones doing business as the Supreme Court, quote unquote, do. Because the Supreme Court, quote unquote, never has a jury. Think about that. They never have a jury involved in what they're doing. They issue their opinion because they know they can't issue a ruling like we do. All they're doing is modeling for us and then saying, you're sovereign, Moors, so you know how to do this. And yes, Empress Kenya says, we are unalienable and inalienable. Yes, 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 and more yes. Because it doesn't really make sense for us to lien others and then allow somebody to come and lien us. That doesn't make any sense at all. Because then that will mean that something's going on in the system that's causing things to come back in a direction that it shouldn't be coming back in. Issuing justice is issuing justice. Okay. Now, if we are doing things and again, it's not that we're above the law, it's that we are the law. We are the law. So when we're in control of our own money system like we are now, even if someone did lien us, which that's not really a thing. When you're in all lowercase letters, you can't be liened. You're unalienable and inalienable. But even still, we just go and print up what we need and we say, okay, here you go. This is recompense for whatever was going on, and we will ensure that we don't do that again, because we don't want to keep seeing recompense. We want to do what's right. And so our system is definitely an honor system. It's an honor system. And we don't really, some say, well, what about the dirty Moors? Don't worry about them. Don't even worry. If you see the dirt, don't worry. The ancestors mean for us to do what is right. And we will attract the energy according to what we do and what we're thinking and what we're saying. When you get to the point of the sovereign status where we're fully competent and we are aware of who we really are. Right. Justice Theodore says karma will take care of the dirty Moors, and guess what? They will clean up their act by the time karma gets through so that they can join in and let's keep doing this the right way. Because, listen, you would want to sit in a jail cell instead of the ancestors getting a hold of you. Because they can make it they can make it a lot worse on the outside if, you know. But we don't have to keep focusing on that. We can focus on moving ahead and governing the vast estate, because we're not going to experience that part. Because the ancestors said in the Holy Symbols that 1,000 will fall at thy left and 10,000 at thy right hand, but it will not come nigh thee. It will not come nigh thee. And 10,000 falling at your right hand has a lot to do with what you're doing with your right hand. 10,000 corpses will, or more, millions actually. So, again, these three things that they are saying, and again, we have to clean up their language, okay, because their language is applicable to them. But what he's saying really is that it is a judge and not the court who is liening a citizen and impounding and arresting, except, and this is why we lien those fake courts and all of that, because those subjects are not going to hide behind a court and then do things like that. We're not allowing that on our land, because that's what we've been dealing with. is corpses is those who should be in subject status stepping up onto a podium and taking a position or an office, quote unquote, that they're discharging duties from in the first place. And again, when you discharge a duty or you discharge a debt, that means that that's not really that it doesn't really belong to you, but you're just doing it. You're taking care of it. That's why, for example, the corporates were saying that they would raise their right hand and say that they solemnly, quote unquote, swear to discharge the duties faithfully. Why can't they just do the duties? Because they don't have the authority. When we discharge debt, we're saying that's not my debt. It belongs to the subjects. So we're going to free the subjects from the debt. We're going to redeem them. Because we've told them, do this, and when we wake up, we'll make sure that you're not held as surety for this debt. That's why we discharge the debt. They don't have the authority to discharge debt. Only we can do that. And how do we discharge debt? Our courts do it. We issue an affidavit and some delarium and a lien on the corporate, because one of the Moors had sent out some delarium to take care of something that they were doing, and they got a letter back from the corporation that they sent it to, and the corporation said, well, we don't accept moorishe sovereign delarium, and they put moorishe sovereign delarium. They were respectful. They put it in all lowercase letters and all of that. But when it came to addressing the letter to whoever they were speaking to, they put it in all capital letters. So upon further investigation, I was asking them more some questions about, okay, what happened, because they wouldn't normally do that if the steps were taken, okay? And come to find out, the Moor had not liened the straw, the cap court. They had not liened that court. They were, and again, we're not bashing them. I'm actually glad that they're demonstrating. But we can't skip those steps. We have to lien those corpses. We have to lien the nom de guerre and the wardship name, because that's what they've been using in order to try and put some debt off on us. All judges are bankers. They're actually pushing debt and saying, somebody take this debt because I don't want to pay it. That's what they're saying. Because we do know that whenever they would lose the case, they had to come out of their own pocket. So they would put bonds in place, distress bonds in place, so that they wouldn't have to keep coming out of their pocket to pay something. And that's why no matter what, they were saying, I got to get the W. I got to get the win. Because if I get the win, I don't have to pay for this stuff. And then when they saw Moors agreeing to be surety, they were like, this is great. We'll just arrest all the Moors, because they don't know that we've capitalized everything. They forgot that they should be writing in capitis diminutio nolo. They've known about that from day one. We just showed you. When they were writing the Constitution, their version of it, and they weren't really writing it. They were just looking at what we did and saying, okay, capitalize this word. Okay, capitalize that one. Okay, capitalize that one so that we don't have to, so it doesn't mean what the Moors say it means. That way we can make that word mean whatever we want it to mean. And that's the same strategy that their courts, all of their courts, their fake courts, their corporate courts have been using the whole time. And now we know. More and more proof is coming forth. More and more proof coming forth. It says a commercial lien or commercial distress must always be established by a sworn affidavit signed by the flesh and blood maker thereof as a first surety. And it's the affidavit that is the surety, not the living. This is stuff they've always known. And because it's our money system, it is the system that supports our court that says that we're not surety for anything. And then we don't want the subjects to be surety either. We don't want to throw them into a jail cell. That's not why we created them. That is not why we created them. Yes, in the chat, it is our duty to lien. It removes the lying within the court structure. Absolutely. Moors have a responsibility to do that. If you care anything about any subject, you will lien the corporate structure off of them because it's a burden on them to have that all caps coming at them in the mail and, at quote unquote tax time and all of that. The only ones who really quote unquote like capitalism is the ones that were sitting at the top of that whole pyramid, and I can't even call it a pyramid scheme because that does it too much justice. We don't want to, ruin our pyramid by calling their scheme a pyramid scheme. Only the ones at the top liked capitalism because they could just shuffle and hypothecate somebody else's. That's why they would change names of their corporations all the time. They would just create another shell corp and leave all the past debt with the past last corpse and let that corpse just hang on out there and say, oh, that's not my corpse. This is my new corpse, and my new corpse doesn't have any debt yet, so I'm going to go out and create some. That's what they did. And then the Moors started to wake up. And that's why when we lien, we say all agents, principals, heirs, assigned, and any and all derivatives thereof. So we get any new corpse that they may have created, which they can't even do that anymore because the debt follows them until they get their butts out of corporate status and get back into subject status like they're supposed to. And, we're not being mean or ugly or arrogant about that. That is the law. That's the law. It's the law, and that's how peace is brought onto the land. The war has to stop. And that's why we do what we do in terms of liens, court actions, fiduciary duty, with regard to the Moors being the fiduciary for the Empire State of Morocco. I want to tell you also that I want to show here. It says here, however, the judges know that they have a commitment to the quote-unquote government hierarchy to not disclose or reveal this information to the defendants or on the public record because it would disclose or reveal to the defendants and to the public that the public tax-paying citizen has the reciprocal and equal right to defend himself or herself against the judge and the court with the same commercial lien and commercial distress process. And I will say this about that. The citizens have tried that process and it did not work out well for them because, again, the court those fake courts just looked at, okay, all we have to do to beat that is capitalize them and throw that in the trash. Because if it doesn't come from the Moors by affidavit and government status, if it's not coming from the real government, they knew they didn't have to pay attention to that. They didn't. And people had gotten so accustomed to them throwing liens away in the trash that when we started doing liens, they just assumed that the courts could throw our liens in the trash too, but they couldn't. They couldn't, because the liens were coming from the real judges and the real justices. That's why they couldn't. They had to actually do what we tell them to do. And we can see that now. There are many places to look to see that, oh, the corporate activity at America is at Alma Rock has come to a halt. And now the way things are moving here on the land is moving as the resources of the land. Now, I will say this, we have to keep leaning. We have to keep our courts up and running, because if we're not ever going to stop. I can't even say what will happen if we stop, because we're not going to stop. We have to teach our heirs how to do court actions and liens, and I'm pleased to say my empress is all over the lien process. She knows it. In terms of getting liens kicked out really quickly and that sort of thing. So I'm proud of that. And we have to keep that going. I don't think that she realizes the magnitude of what liens do, but she'll learn over time. So again, and this is what I was just saying here on the screen. It says, instead of disclosing this commercial truth to the defendant, quote unquote, and to the public, and again, he's using capital letters too, so he's not talking to us, he's talking to other citizens. It says the corrupted part of the quote unquote government hierarchy conceals that truth and violates the principle of equal protection of the law by passing laws that prohibit the common citizen from filing commercial liens and commercial distresses against criminal judges and other criminal government officers and agents. It says this in turn violates the general principle of acting with reasonable diligence as set forth in the United States Code, Title 42, Section 1986, which implies a mandated obligation of the public citizen to do whatever is reasonably possible and reasonably necessary, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I will say this about our lien process. The thing that I love about the way the ancestors unfolded all that we've been doing is when they unfolded the lien process to us, some of the Moors who came before us had already put notification of liens on the public record. They had already done that. And so we did it again that, hey, all corporations are going to be liens. Everyone's going to be liens. So we gave due process and due notice, okay, to all the corporations that you're going to be liens, and there's not a corporation that's going to escape that, not one. They're all, every last corp, every last one. If you care about your neighbors, you'll lien the corp off of them. If you don't care about them, you'll lien the corpse off of them still. Because either way, it's going to make things easier for us. The lien process makes things easier for us. How does it make things easier? Because when you have the lien in place, then now you're dealing with someone who is in their proper status, whatever that status may be, whether it be subjects or other Moors, Because, see, we have family members or kin who are Moors, who don't know and don't believe in anything, and we're not asking for belief. Just look at the law. Look at what's been being perpetrated against us in our ignorance. Should you place a lien on the nom de guerre war names of those you love? Yes, you should. You should. Because that's not them. That's a corpse trying to pretending to be them. When they're ready, they'll wake up. Now, I will say this about the lien process. If you're doing a lien and the energy is not love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, then I would suggest that you not do the lien until it is that. And that's whether it's kin or not. Okay. No matter who we're leaning or no matter who we're doing court actions, we cannot do it with war energy. We have to do it with peace energy. I always make this suggestion, and some will say that it's not a good suggestion, but I think it is. Whoever it is that you're leaning, again, you're not leaning them. Corporations and corpses do not come from anyone's womb. So you're not leaning, we're not mad at people. But my suggestion is, if in your mind you cannot visualize walking up to someone and hugging that person, not person, but that being, that living being, whether it be a policy enforcer, subject, or whoever it is, if you cannot envision walking up to them and shaking hands or hugging them or something, some gesture of non-hostility, then hold off on doing liens until you can at least visualize that. I'm not saying that you have to do that, because you don't have to do it. I don't go around hugging everybody, that I lien. I just visualize, if I saw them today, could I do that and not be mad at them and really be sincere and mean it? Now, that's just my gauge. For others, you have your own gauge of whether you're mad at somebody or not, and your own ways to check your energy. That's the gauge that I use. Is if I saw them today, can I actually walk up to them and say, you know what, I have no hard feelings about anything that has transpired, and give them a hug and say, hey, now I have to lean your straw, because we're not at war, we're at peace. You're a living being and I'm a living being. And we're not going to have corpses telling us what to do and getting in between our relationship as living beings with one another. The only reason all of this war has been happening is because people have been saying, I have to do it because that's my job. Okay, the liens say it's not your job anymore. Not your job anymore. Your job is an oath to the Constitution, an affirmation to the Constitution. Your job is now to obey the law, not codes and statutes of a dead corporation or court. That's what the liens are all about, and that's why we do what we do. So he's in this the fake courts and all of that. Have made it so that the citizens have no recourse. okay? And so the reason that we have to continue doing what we're doing, first, because we love doing it. Number two, because it's according to the will of our ancestors, and we are our ancestors' return. And then also to provide remedy on our land. First for ourselves and other Moors. We have to uplift ourselves first because no one else can be uplifted if we're still drowning, if we're still thinking that we're lost at sea. And then remedy can come to everyone, the whole earth. Okay? And we can see that remedy happening already. All we have to do is look at the news. We can see remedy happening, where people are saying, I don't have to do what a corporation says because I'm not a corpse, I'm a living being, and I'm going to invoke the Constitution that the Moors gave us. That is what we're seeing all over our land. We're very happy about that. We're proud of that fact that there's remedy when the citizens and the subjects point to the Constitution and say, corpses, you can't do that. We don't have to do what you say. We're going with the Constitution. Because what they're saying really is the Moors are in charge here, corporations, not you. So where do we go from here? What we do is continue leaning, doing court actions, getting our documents in alignment, getting the documents put in red in all lowercase letters and sent to the Library of Congress, and continue demonstrating our sovereign status. We have been in the free ourselves mode for a while now, and now it's time for us to move forth in, okay, we're no longer in defensive mode, as it were. And you can call it that, but we spell it a little bit differently. In other words, we don't feel like anyone's chasing after us and, you know, we're having to fight off things and all of that, those feelings are starting to move to the side. And we can see the estate manifesting where it's like, okay, now we can breathe a little bit and start claiming some things. But freedom has to be first in alignment in terms of we have to know how to keep what we get by setting ourselves free with what we have already. Okay? And what we have is not much in terms of coming out of that old system. So knowing how to protect what we have already, the little that that system afforded us, protecting that and our heirs and all of that, and then we say, okay, now that we know how to protect domiciles, we can claim a domicile. Now that we know how to protect conveyances from being taken, we can claim conveyances, and et cetera, those things. Okay? But we have to know how to save ourselves first right now. That's most important and most pressing, you know, for as a nation as a whole, is just making sure we come out of capitalism, come out of that system. With that being said, are there any questions or comments regarding anything that we have stated here? And again, we will put this document and the link to it under this video so that you can see it, and also the link to the constitutional, the different stages of the Constitution. That's really what that page was. Is it shows you how they use capitalism in order to make the quote-unquote Constitution say what they wanted it to say, and how we have to reverse. That's part of reversion of the vast state, is saying, okay, let's come out of the capitalism system, because it is colonial in nature, and then put forth our own system, which looks similar, but it's not similar because it comes from us. That's the difference between what we're doing and what they did. We lean everything that they have done out of play, off the chessboard, lean it off the chessboard, and then create our own and call it what we want to call it. So that's our plan, that's our strategy for moving forward. That's how we're going to continue to move forward, is everything that we see, we're going to decapitalize and decolonize it. And starting with ourselves, our focus should be on freeing ourselves first, then we can assist clan members and, friends and others. The things that we have learned, we learned it from saving ourselves. And you all have seen the evidence of that. You've seen the documents and the paperwork and, the POW demonstrations, and you've seen all of that. Policy enforcers, and this was back in 2018, policy enforcers coming to the door every day for 3 weeks until we did a court action on them and all of that. So our ancestors are doing exactly what they said they would do in looking out for us while we go through this process. And then more with the testing, I will say this about the testing, because some get upset about the testing. Some of the Moors get upset about being tested and about POW tests. And, when I say POW, prison, jail tests and policy enforcers pulling Moors over and all of that. The foreigners that are on this land who are now in subject status are prepared to do anything to stay here. Anything. And you can listen to them speak out there on YouTube and all of these other places. They are fully prepared to defend the Constitution that we gave them. And they don't have to do that with guns and weapons and things like that. We didn't do it with any weapons. I didn't pick up a single gun, and none of us have picked up guns to do what we've done thus far. We just have to know how to use our keys properly. And they're preparing to make sure that they can keep themselves free from the corporation as they make their separation from it as well. Our subjects are coming out of that, and we have to do the same. Okay? And they're actually following us out because they can't come out by themselves. They actually have to have our permission to come out. And our permission doesn't look like us telling them, okay, you can come out of there. That's not what it looks like. It looks like us coming out competently, safely, and then proclaiming all that belongs to us. Are there any comments or anything that you've seen out there?
If you name my home, can I play it with delirium?
Affirmations. Yes, Islam Empress, go ahead.
Are you sure? I can wait.
Yes, no, go ahead, Empress.
Okay, she threw me off track. I'm noticing in my neighborhood that, in my area, that the United States post offices have removed those stars and stripe banners. Has anyone else seen the same thing? And then I also too want to affirm that the the subjects are having rallies all over the country, and they're saying that the only way they're going to they can save themselves is through that Constitution. So I just wanted to share that, and I was wondering if anyone else is noticing with their post office, with the post offices in their area. Islam.
Here in my territory, they take them down when we do certain things, and then they'll put them back up, but they have the prisoner of war flag up. So they're waiting for us to do something else. And we know what that something else is, and we're preparing those demonstrations as we go too. So they give us hints in no uncertain terms.
It's been days. It's almost a week.
Yeah.
It's almost a week, and it's all of them in that area. So I'm just wondering, there's something else going on.
Yeah. It's probably some demonstrating that you're doing in that area, Empress, whether it be energetically or on paper. I know here, when we first started doing things, like when we first leaned the United States Corporation Company in 2018, they took the banner of amity and commerce down, the big one in the middle of the territory. They took that down, and it stayed down for a whole year. And then it was like, okay, they put it back up there, and they said, they give hints about what we're doing. But our job is to keep going and not stop, keep going, so that we can make it so that our flag is everywhere. Okay, so, but they keep the POW, the prisoner of war flag up here. So that just means that, you know, we have more to do in terms of the money system, which we're working on that demonstration to further circulate the dollarium. And I do want to thank those who have been sending your dollarium every month. The emails started coming in over the last couple of days, because this is the beginning of November. And I want to thank the Moors who, like clockwork, they send 300 dollarium or more, and usually it's more. And at this point, we're up to about $500 million in donations from the Moors. So I'm grateful for that. I couldn't be happier, because it absolutely states on the record that we have full faith and credit in ourselves, and not in any corporate anything outside of us. We're circulating our own money. That's what validates the money, is our use of it. Because if you think about it, that's what was validating their state courts, is we kept going there. And then when we stopped going there, then it's like, okay, y'all got to take that somewhere else. And that's what you get in subject status, and it's now an inferior court, according to the Constitution. And we are the superior court, and supreme, sovereign court, Article 3 court. So they take their orders and commands from us. With that being said, so much more has come out about that just affirms what we've been doing. So we're glad to see that. And we're also glad that Moors can now see that what we've been saying is affirmed by what they're seeing in the media, and, you know, the videos and information that's coming out says that everything that we've been doing has been definitely revealed to us by the ancestors, and we're not guessing at what we're doing. We know exactly what we're doing. And then, you know, again, how to create currencies for local communities. We created currency for the whole earth. But they were not going to show us these things. And these things, even if they had shown us, we would not have known how to do it unless the ancestors had come in and said, okay, it's time. It's time, and show the Moors what to do. And that's what the ancestors have done. And, you know, just by our obedience to the ancestral energies within us, we have done in a very short time what needed to be done overall. It really needed to be done. We needed to have our own money. And now we see that others have been attempting to do it, you know, based on what's on the screen here. But they're telling us in no uncertain terms that they can't do it unless we do it and then raise them from the dead. Okay. So we will be back tomorrow at 7 p.m. I have a couple of other documents to share with you with regard to all that we've been doing that will assist in further showing information that has to do with far more effective and competent demonstrations. These documents that we've shown and the constitutional part, for those who are interested in seeing some of the letters on that constitutional page, there's a couple of letters that talk about the Negro black colored piece that you might find of interest as well. And again, these are all in affirmation of what we've been doing and saying the whole time, so that we know as we move forth. And from this point forward, in our demonstrations and all that we're doing, we're going to be just continuing to put emphasis on all of the documents that that it is suggested that you have on the public record and have in place to do your demonstration so that we don't skip any steps. Because even the more that I spoke about earlier, who received the letter, and the letter basically was saying that the corpses cannot accept more sovereign delarium, and it was because he hadn't leaned that corporate status off of those subjects. So they gave him the answer. They said, for this matter up here, that's what they said, and they were talking about the all caps name that was at the top of the page. They said, for the matter referenced above, we cannot accept more sovereign delarium. And that's true. We're not supposed to give more sovereign delarium to corpses. We're supposed to lean the corpse, and then the subjects can do whatever it is that we need them to do. Okay. So with that being said, peace and grand rising to the sovereign, original, indigenous, natural defined heirs. Islam.
Peace and love, Eric. Grand rising.
Peace and grand rising.
Peace and love. Peace and love.
Peace and love.
Islam.
What crazy talk?
Islam. Peace and love.